guys, and welcome to today's video. In today's video, I'm going to be ranking all of my high-end foundations. I have 6 foundations to show you. So if you're somebody that's needing a new foundation, I think you'll find this video very helpful. So if you'd like to see what my top 6 foundations are and who the number 1 spot goes to, then this video is for you. Okay, so the foundation that's in spot number 6 is none other than the Rare Beauty True to Myself foundation. Now this one here is quite a recent launch, and there are some positives about this foundation, even though it is in spot number 6. So it does have this lid here, which is excellent for those who have dexterity issues because the button is quite large and it makes the product really easy to get out. That's what the packaging looks like. That's the button there. The packaging's made of a hard plastic, so it is great if you need to travel because this is not going to break. It's also got this little lid here where you can flick it on and off, which once again is a very clever component on the packaging. So this is what the shade number 5 looks like swatched, and as you can see with the texture, it has an incredibly airy and moussey texture to it. So it actually prime, covers and sets. I found it better not to actually put a primer on underneath. I find that this foundation does have an excellent coverage, as you can see. I just find that after some time it does gather into my dry patches on my face and my creases. I have also tried setting this powder as well, even though it is self-setting, and I found that that didn't help the situation either. I do believe that this foundation is better just letting it be. I feel as though that when I use this foundation, my skin does feel quite dry later on down the track. I do have a dry skin. I found that I prep my skin really well, but it still felt dry throughout the day. So look, as you can see, there's nothing wrong with the coverage. I'm getting an excellent coverage. It definitely is a buildable foundation. I agree with that. This foundation is actually recommended for combination normal to oily skin. Those of you with dry skin, I don't think this foundation is for you at all. It's not meant to cling to dry patches, but I found that it did. You definitely do get a beautiful matte look to it, and it's not a flat matte either. You can see that my skin still does look somewhat hydrated. My skin does look lovely and flawless, and it has definitely hidden any pores that I had, and it does look blurred. It's more of a natural matte, so you're not getting a flat matte. You'll get a little bit of hydration because it's meant to mimic your natural skin. At the moment it's looking very nice, but I do find by the end of the day, I find that it has separated and gathered quite a lot on my chin by the end of the day. It actually has some finely milled powders in the formulation, and that's how you get your self-setting quality of this foundation. I definitely didn't need a primer or a powder when I was using this foundation. So this is the Rare Beauty foundation in the shade number 5. Okay, so in spot number 5 would have to be none other than the newly reformulated Estee Lauder Double Wear. Now I have this in spot number 5 because, like the Rare Beauty, I found that it did gather into my dry spots on my face. I also found that it did go into my creases, and I felt as though it didn't have the lasting quality of the original formulation. However, this formulation does feel very comfortable on the skin. Particularly if you have a dry skin, you'll most likely like this version of the new foundation. It does feel a lot more hydrating than the original. There we are. So that's the shade Warm Vanilla, and as you can see, the consistency of it is quite a runny one. So with this foundation, I feel as though there is a technique that you have to follow to be able to get it to look nice. I normally start off with my first layer, so this one here is just going to be a thin layer, and you normally just swipe it on like so. So as you can see, my skin is looking incredibly hydrated from the get-go. You can actually see the hydration levels in my skin. So this is a completely different formulation to the OG. The coverage is not as thick as the original from the get-go. It's just more of a finer coverage that you are able to build up. So it's got hyaluronic acid in it, which is meant to maintain the moisture levels in your skin throughout the day. My skin didn't feel dry after wearing this for 8 hours. This is just one pump and my skin does look lovely. The trick is that you've got to let the first layer dry down. So you've got to give it a little bit of time before you go in with your second layer. It comes out quite unflattering and gathers in parts of your face if you go in too quickly. So they have 67 shades in this range. Estee Lauder's been known to have a great shade range. I feel as though the undertones are different to the original one as well. So for example, I've got the shade Warm Vanilla, but I find that it is a little bit more lighter than the OG one. So when you are picking your shade, just make sure you get a sample because they are slightly different to the original ones. I'm going in with the second layer now. So with this one here, we're wanting to stipple. With the second layer, I just stipple in the areas that I feel needs the most coverage, which is around where I have all my pores. And that's just building up beautifully because I have given it time to dry down the first layer. There we are. So that's the second layer of the Estee Lauder Double Wear. I feel as though the Estee Lauder Double Wear is a lot more flattering than the Rare Beauty. I find that it's more hydrated on the skin and I get a better coverage from it. I feel as though on the Rare Beauty side of my face, the powders are quite obvious. But if you look at the Estee Lauder Double Wear side, it does look like skin. It does look a lot more hydrated on there. I think if you're somebody that didn't like the OG version of Estee Lauder Double Wear, you will like this one because it is very different to the original. And as I mentioned before, if you had dry skin and you felt as though you just couldn't wear the original one, I think that you will like the newly reformulated one. Okay, so in fourth place is none other than the Natasha Denona High Glam Foundation. Now, if you haven't tried this foundation, you are missing out. It feels absolutely beautiful on the skin, particularly if you're somebody that does have a dry skin because it has so many skincare ingredients added into it. This foundation actually took Natasha 4 years to develop, so she put a lot of research and science into the formulation. This formulation is quite different to the other foundations we looked at. It's more of a natural, radiant and sheer formulation, so it's definitely not a matte foundation. It has such a gorgeous buttery plumping feel on the skin. It actually feels like I'm putting skincare onto my skin rather than a foundation. So it's meant to give the skin a luminous and airbrushed look to it. So I do agree that it definitely does do that. I feel as though my skin does look a lot more healthy and luminous also. I've got the shade N2 and we'll just take a look at the formulation. So that's the Natasha Denona formulation. As you can see, the consistency is quite a runny one. So we'll go in with the shade N2. And I find that this one's just a lot easier to stipple onto the skin. But you will see it just looks like I have hydrated my skin and put a cream on. So those of you that have a dry skin are going to love this foundation. It is just so comforting on the skin. Now, I find that less is more with this foundation. I'd probably just go in with one pump. It is a buildable foundation, but I find it's a little bit more flattering with a lighter coverage. I feel as though she's very inclusive with her shade range. And it was great how they matched up to the concealers as well, because I've also got the shade N2 in the concealer. It has that same concept as the concealer. It just gives the skin such a plumped and hydrated look. So apparently this foundation is excellent for sensitive skin, and also it has anti-aging benefits in it, which I tell you what, I definitely would love that. Thank you very much. Anything that helps. So I've just gone in there with one pump. I'm going to let it dry down just a little bit and then we'll add a little bit more just to see what coverage we can get. But I feel as though that one pump is definitely a good amount of coverage. My skin looks radiant, it looks healthy. Because of all the skincare properties in there, it does have a slight tacky feel. I feel as though throughout the day I still do have that slight tacky feeling and that hydrated feel, but that's just the way the formulation's meant to be. I'm going in with a second pump now, so we'll just gently build that up on top. And you can see it is definitely buildable. It is definitely a very emollient foundation. It's meant to be a self-setting foundation, but I feel as though with a foundation that is this hydrating, I find that I do normally like to set it with a bit of a powder, especially around the pores. It is an incredibly stunning foundation and it does feel really comfortable. I think it all depends on how you're applying it. So I definitely go in with layers. I take my time using this foundation. You don't want to go in heavy-handed and put too much on straight away because it can become unflattering if you do put it on that way. So this one's much better in gradual layers. And I do find that less is definitely more with this foundation. And I also find the foundation is quite long wearing as well. So that is great for a foundation that's not matte and hydrating. So this is the Natasha Denona High Glam Foundation in the shade N2. Okay, so in third place is none other than the Makeup by Mario Surreal Skin Natural Finish Foundation. It's always such a mouthful, isn't it? I've put this one here in third place because you guys know I love matte formulations. I just feel as though matte formulations are a lot more flattering on my skin. Even though I have dry skin, I find it hides my pores. Now, this particular foundation I would recommend for somebody that has more of a normal to oily skin type, because I do find that if I don't prep my skin properly, it does feel dry with this Mario foundation. But I do find once you have prepped your skin, this foundation looks absolutely lovely. It just provides the skin with a matte veil of foundation. So it's not, once again, it's not an overly matte foundation. It still looks like skin and it doesn't have any of those powders sitting on top of it like I felt like the Rare Beauty did. And this one is another foundation that's incredibly long wearing as well. So I've got the shade N2 in this one and I'll swatch it so you can see what it looks like. back. So that's the Makeup by Mario foundation in the shade N2. And as you can see, the formulation is quite runny also. What I love about this foundation is you can start off with an incredibly light layer. It doesn't come out heavy from the get-go. It's not a heavy foundation, so you can definitely build it up to be a heavier coverage if you so wish. And as you can see, when I'm putting it on my skin, I still have a gorgeous glow. When comparing it to the Rare Beauty, I felt as though the Rare Beauty did set down quickly and I could see the powders on top of my skin. So this is just with one pump, and I feel as though the coverage is very good because I've actually got a little bit of pigmentation there and it's covered it up really, really well. So you can see that this foundation is incredibly blurring. This foundation is great on hot days because it's humidity proof. So I find that it does definitely stay on. So this one will be a great summer foundation because you get the long wearing quality out of it and it is a nice matte foundation. It's really interesting comparing the two formulations together. So as you know, I've got the Natasha Denona High Glam on this side and then the Mario. So we've got more of a matte foundation on this side. And you'll see what I mean about matte formulations. I do have a beautiful glow to my skin, but if I move in closely, the lines here do become quite emphasized with this type of formulation. And the Makeup by Mario is more blurring and I find it is much better at hiding those fine lines. So that's why I always prefer a matte foundation on my skin because you can clearly see the difference there. So when I am wearing the Natasha Denona one, I definitely have to powder around these areas because I feel as though the glowiness emphasizes all of my texture and wrinkles. So there we are. That's just one pump. I'll just add a little bit more and we'll see what kind of coverage that we can get there. And it's just building up beautifully. I'm not having any issues whatsoever. It's just looking so beautiful on the skin. So there we are. You can just see that although it is matte, there is still a little bit of a hint of a glow on my skin. It does definitely set down later on. It just looks like a natural matte on the skin. It is incredibly flattering. So this one here is the shade N2 in the Makeup by Mario's Real Skin Natural Finish Foundation. Okay, so now we're up to the final two foundations. Now, are you ready for number 2? Spot number 2 is none other than the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Foundation. Now, what I love about this foundation is the coverage. My goodness, you only need one drop of this foundation and you will have the best coverage that you have ever seen. And I find although it is a great coverage, it doesn't look drying on the skin. My skin maintains its hydration throughout the day. It actually feels very comfortable. I don't know what she puts in it, but it doesn't look like a mask on my skin at all. I actually just look like I'm incredibly flawless. This is another foundation that is self-setting, and I do agree with that because I find as though I don't really need to put any powders on when I wear this foundation. Obviously, I always set my under eyes, but I find around my pore areas on my face, I don't really need too much powder with this foundation. I've got the shade 4 Neutral and it is way too deep for my skin tone, so it might look a little bit odd on my skin. I tell you what, this formulation is lovely. So I'll show you what the shade 4 Neutral looks like. During the day when I want to wear this foundation, I normally mix it with my Mario foundation and they make a beautiful combo, those two. So that's how I'm able to wear this foundation. But what I love about this foundation is it has that beautiful moussey texture to it. So it comes out very light and airy when you first apply the foundation. I don't know what it is that she's put in it so it looks so airy and moussey and then has the best coverage you have ever seen. This is way too much. I've put way too much on my skin. You need a very, very small amount because you'll see what kind of coverage I'm going to get. This foundation has something called Replexium in it, and it's meant to reduce the wrinkles on your face over time. So that sounds absolutely wonderful. It also has something in it called Air Cool, which is meant to give your skin a lasting cooling effect and combat the effects of humidity. So as somebody that's going through menopause, that sounds absolutely wonderful. I'm not using that entire amount that I just showed you. I'm just getting the smallest amount, but look how beautifully flawless this foundation looks. And it is definitely buildable. I'm just going in now with a second layer on top of what I've just put on. But it just gives the skin, like it suggests, a flawless canvas. Even if you do have dry skin, as I said before, it does not feel uncomfortable. It actually feels hydrated throughout the day. If you have an event or a wedding or anything to go to, this is your go-to foundation for that. It actually stays looking like this all day. It is very long wearing. I found by the end of the day, I've actually done wear tests on this foundation also, and I found that it didn't go into any of my creases and you couldn't see any of my pores. It was just a great all-rounder foundation. I feel as if this formulation is a lot more like the newly reformulated Estee Lauder Double Wear. It's more of a natural finish matte foundation, and I find that it does have that sort of same hydrated look on the skin as the Estee Lauder Double Wear. This one, you will get the full coverage straight away. It's not like the new Estee Lauder Double Wear where you have to slowly build it up to get this kind of coverage. And I find that throughout the day, this foundation will stay looking like this. It's not going to go into any of my creases, and it doesn't gather and separate around my chin like the Estee Lauder does. So you can see why this is in spot number 2, just for the beautiful coverage that it gives the skin. Now for spot number 1. As I mentioned before, this is my everyday foundation. I wear it to work. I know it's not going to let me down. It is none other than the Dior Forever foundation. Now this one here is the matte version. They did reformulate both foundations. Although I didn't try the OG of this one, I have heard that the formulation hasn't changed much at all. I can still get a really blurred canvas like I do with the Charlotte Tilbury. However, this one is more skin-like and it does give a bit more of a lighter coverage. So I feel as though for every day, this foundation's got you. It's definitely buildable, so you can build it up if you are wanting more of a coverage like this. So this one here is the shade 1W and the Dior Forever foundation. And as you can see, the formulation is quite runny, completely different to the Charlotte Tilbury one. See, look at this. Like, it just gives the skin such a beautiful glow. Like I'm just having the best skin day. And I know it's not going to come out too heavy. Like, that's just one pump. And I feel as though that is great coverage just with one pump. It's not too much. I'm not looking like I'm wearing a full face of makeup. It just looks natural. This would definitely have to be the most skin-like foundation out of all the ones that I've shown you. It maintains this blurred look throughout the day. So the lines here don't come out. My pores aren't showing later on. It literally just stays looking like this all day. So this foundation is actually suitable for all skin types. So if you've got oily skin, dry skin, sensitive skin, combination skin, anybody can wear this foundation. Both foundations look absolutely beautiful, but I find for everyday wear, the Dior just wins. It just touches my skin and almost melts into the skin. I'm barely having to blend it in at all. This is the Dior Forever Matte Foundation in the shade 1W. Okay, so now I've got foundations on my face. I'm just going to go and put the rest of my makeup on. While I'm back, I just put on a bit of bronzer, blush, and a little bit more gloss, and this is how it turned out. As you can see, both foundations look absolutely beautiful on the skin. And the great thing is, by the end of the day, they'll still look like this. Well, thank you so much for joining me in today's video, and I hope you guys found it helpful in finding the perfect foundation that will suit your skin. Once again, thank you so much for joining me, and if you've made it this far in the video, please remember to like and subscribe as it helps me out a lot, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video.